Now, as podcasters, we're all obsessed with getting a really good ranking in iTunes. And over the years, I've sort of spoken to some really successful podcasters and asked them, okay, what is your technique for getting higher up on that page, for getting in the new and noteworthy section of iTunes? What have you done to achieve that status? And there's 3 things that I've been told over and over and over again. And I thought that I would dedicate today's podcast episode to talking about those 3 things and perhaps going into a bit more detail. So the first thing that you've got to think about when you're wanting a fantastic rank in iTunes with your podcast is to be really good with keywords. If you don't know what a keyword is, a keyword basically is a word or a phrase that relates to the topic that you are podcasting about, that somebody might type into Google or iTunes to get more information on that topic. So, for example, a keyword for my podcast would be how to podcast or podcasting. Now, keywords are what the major search engines are built on. Search engines like Google and Yahoo and Bing and all that sort of stuff. But what a lot of people don't realize is that iTunes is actually a real heavyweight search engine in its own right. So we've got the iTunes store, right? We've got all the CDs and the albums and the movies and the apps and all the rest of it. People go to iTunes, they type in keywords, and they get results. And there's millions of people that do this every day. So as a podcaster, if you're playing around in FeedBurner with your feed and you're just putting in basic details like name, podcast description, summary, subtitle, all those things, and you're not making these things keyword rich, then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot, really, because you're putting all this effort in to optimizing your feed, but you're not using the very thing that will attract traffic to you. Now, when it comes to keywords as well, to find keywords, it's not about guesswork. So it's not about you sitting there going, I wonder what people are typing in to look up my topic. There's some fantastic software that you can use that will give you successful results when it comes to searching for keywords. There's free software, something like Google Keyword Tool, and then there's also paid software like Market Samurai, which I've been using, which is really, really good. Because not only does it tell you what words people are searching for, but it also tells you how much competition is on those keywords. So is there another podcaster out there who's trying to use those keywords as well? Because the more competition there is for keywords, the harder it is going to be for you to actually own them. So let's talk about the Google Keyword Tool, quite possibly the best place to start really for you. Now, forgive me if I'm covering old ground here and you already know how to use the Google Keyword Tool, but this ain't going to take too long. So let's say you're doing a podcast about, well, let's use the old cliche, dog training. If you go to the Google Keyword Tool and you type in dog training, Google will go out there into cyberspace and pull back all the keywords that are related to dog training. So another keyword that's related to dog training might be puppy training or puppy toilet training, because they're all sort of falling under the one banner, really, aren't they, when it comes to dog training. So that's how you use the Google Keyword Tool. Then you get the most popular keywords and put them in your feed when you're optimizing your FeedBurner feed. So, for example, in FeedBurner, if you're in front of the computer now, it might help if you actually pull up your FeedBurner feed. In FeedBurner, it's got a podcast summary or podcast description. Now, this is basically where you're going to write a paragraph or so on your podcast and why people should listen to it. So it's a description, blah, blah, blah. This is who I am. This is what I podcast about. This is also, when you're filling out this section, a great opportunity for you to inject it full of keywords, okay? Because iTunes uses keywords in the same way as Google does. So if someone's typing in iTunes, searching for information on a keyword, and there's the keyword in your podcast description, iTunes is going to go, ooh, match, and put them both together. That's the result that we want. So you inject a lot of keywords into your podcast summary in FeedBurner, but this does come with a bit of a warning. Be careful not to overdose on keywords, because you can almost go the other way, and then what that's going to do is just really dilute your show pitch. So someone's going to read it, and it's just going to be basically a whole lot of keywords just firing out of the screen. And that's not what it's about. It's got to be a fine balance, because remember, you are pitching to people to listen to your show, to your episode, but you want to have a good balance of keywords in there as well. Also, when you're optimizing your feed, where it asks you to fill in your name, so for example, my name, Dan Lyons, don't just put in your name. This is another great opportunity for you to add some keywords. So Dan Lyons, comma, podcaster, comma, blogger, comma, whatever else, whatever other keyword is going to relate to my topic. So really, you should be looking at your whole FeedBurner feed. And when you're sitting there thinking, how can I optimize this? You should be asking yourself, where can I put keywords throughout this feed that will help it rank better in iTunes? And spend a bit of time going through that. Okay, the second step to getting a good ranking in iTunes, that I've been told by loads of really successful podcasters, is to ask for listener reviews and comments. Now, rumor has it, iTunes has always been a little bit dodgy about, revealing how they rank podcasts. But I guess we sort of garner information from the folks who have done really successful in terms of getting a good position in iTunes and sort of piecing the puzzle together that way. A rumor is that they rely pretty heavily on listener reviews to determine the rank of a podcast. Now, a listener review is in iTunes, of course. You know how you get your own little iTunes podcasting page, and somebody can either rank you by stars or they can actually write a couple of sentences about how great you are. iTunes relies really heavily on that to judge the rank of a podcast. See, I think the simple theory is this. The more great reviews you get, the more stars you get, the more iTunes is going to go, oh, we'll expose you now to more people. And they might do this by taking your podcast and sticking it in the new and noteworthy section in iTunes, which can be a tremendous boost in terms of traffic. It can work really well.